Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
Welcome back to another episode of iPad Pros. In today's episode, I'm going to share some thoughts about Ulysses' new split screen feature and two of the features that Apple should steal out of this for iOS 13. My apologies for the audio quality today. If you do notice the audio quality a bit different, it's because I am traveling and got kind of stuck without my microphone this time. So my apologies there. But with that said, let's dive into today's episode. So Ulysses rolled out Ulysses 16 for iOS, which included a major new feature, which is being able to have two instances of the editor side by side, or an instance of the previewer side by side with text. Basically, two instances of the same app side by side is how it really feels, the way they've implemented this. Ulysses, for those that don't know, is one of my favorite text editors for iOS. And the way this feature works is really well done. It's really intuitive. So to get a second instance of Ulysses, all you need to do is drag a sheet from that list of sheets you have as you would any other app to the side of your iPad screen. When you do that, that will then put that sheet side by side with the other instance of your app. And this is really well done. It really feels like I've got two instances of the same application open. Then that brings with it all sorts of really awesome use cases for getting work done on the iPad. No longer do you need to have, say, drafts open with your other text editor. You can do that all in one app. And this is what I believe Apple should be doing in iOS 13, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit later. So that is one way. You can just drag a sheet to the side, and then you'll have two instances of the app, and you will be able to resize that just like you would be able to resize any other split screen instance. It does look a little bit different to indicate it's a Ulysses split screen. It does have that black divider bar with the little handle, but this handle has three little dots on it versus the other handle that does not. And something really interesting is if you do decide to break this split screen and, say, throw a different app on there, when you do close out your app, say I have split screen Ulysses open, two instances of Ulysses, and then I drop Mail onto one of those instances. Once I close out of Mail, once I drag Mail to the right side of the screen and get rid of it, that Ulysses split screen will then just immediately go back to where it was. You won't need to reconfigure that at all. Now, the other way you can get into split screen Ulysses is by going into what's called, I believe, the display options. There's a little A in lowercase a. If you tap that and you hit second editor as a toggle, what that will do, that will open up that same exact text document up in a second editor. And this, I believe, is the way to do it if you are wanting to then go to export to preview that in HTML or something like that. Otherwise, I believe the drag and drop is the better way to go. Now, beyond all that, another really cool thing to do is not even go through the display option, but in Ulysses, as many people know, they have extensive keyboard shortcut support. So what you can do instead of going through those display options is simply hit Command Option 6, and that will pull up the second editor. And from there, you can hit Command 6, and what that will do is pull it up into the export mode. So you can do a live preview of what is this as Markdown, as PDF, as EPUB. You're going to have live exporting of all of this, which is a really great way to visualize your Markdown into the final product. Say you're exporting as EPUB. You're able to actually look at what does that EPUB look like? What does that HTML look like? And that is a really powerful thing. And then another way you can utilize this split screen approach is, say you're doing research. You can have your research on one side of your iPad and you're writing on the other. You can put an outline there. This opens the possibilities for work to be done in really interesting ways. Another really clever thing that Ulysses has done is they've figured out the whole issue of which app is actually active. You've probably run across as many times before on your iPad. which of my two apps on my split screen is actually the one that text will go into. And they've solved this by kind of muting the colors of the inactive app to a gray, where the other app is very clearly more vibrant and alive. And you can actually change which app is the active app. So what you do is you hold down Control Option Command and then either the left or right cursor. And you'll notice the colors will change, indicating which app is active. And this is just genius. It's simple, but it's what should have been implemented with iOS 11 when we got this implementation of multitasking. And it is my hope that Apple does do something like this in iOS 13. Allow us to change which app is active through a keyboard shortcut, or even more reliably tapping the app and making that actually work. Sometimes that doesn't even work, tapping which app you want to be active. So that is one thing I do want Apple to hopefully address in iOS 13. It's all locked in at this point, but I do hope that it gets addressed in iOS 13, and we'll find out very soon about that. The other thing I mentioned earlier is I really love the implementation of just dragging a sheet to the side of your iPad to tell your system, hey, I want this sheet as a separate app. And it really does behave that way. And I really hope Apple does add something like that in iOS 13. Let me drag a file from the Files app and have 2 pages apps open side by side. Let that be done just through dragging files. Let me drag 2 types of the same file side by side and allow that to happen. Now, something you would need to do to have this really work well is just like the Mac, you'd actually have to have, I believe, default apps for file types. So what is a PDF? What does the behavior of a PDF do when you do that? I believe there should be a way to set what is my default PDF app on the iPad. And through that, you would be able to then do this behavior of dragging a file to the side of your iPad to tell it, I want this open on this app. And that would be a logical behavior to happen. So for those that aren't current Ulysses subscribers, there is a trial you can try out. This is a really powerful app, and it's even more so today with this latest update. It also added support for ghost blogging. It's a blogging platform as well. They've supported other blogging platforms, but that is the new one that is now supported directly in Ulysses. But for those that aren't subscribers, this is an application just worth checking out how they implemented split screen from the same app. It is just so well done, and something that I hope Apple takes inspiration from, if not this year, then in iOS 15 or 14. But hopefully we get something similar to this in iOS 13. This is really how I want apps to behave on the iPad. This is great. So I hope you've enjoyed these thoughts. I'm really excited to see what iOS 13 brings. And there will be much discussion over the summer and on the next episode about what is unveiled at WWDC 2019. And I will be following along on Monday like everybody else. Sorry for this being a bit of a shorter episode. We will have more interviews coming up very soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of iPad Pros. I'll talk to everyone again real soon.
You can find the show notes over at iPadPros.net. You can send your feedback to me at iPadProsPodcast@gmail.com. If you email a voice memo, I'd be happy to include your audio in a future episode. I'm on Twitter at iPadProsPodcast. If you haven't had a chance to review the show on Apple Podcasts, I'd highly encourage you to do so. Every review helps send signals to promote the podcast more in search and helps other people discover the show. Thank you for your time and attention today. Talk to everyone again real soon.